Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast, where we explore the strategies that drive successful decision making in the world of business. Why? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. I'm your host, Teasha Cable, CEO of C Model Data, and today we have a visionary leader in pricing strategy and business growth. His name is Pascal. He's the Chief Executive Officer and member of the board at Zilliant. Zilliant's mission is to eliminate pricing anxiety and transform pricing into a business growth driver through their precision pricing platform. Pascal, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you here today. Would you start by sharing a little bit more about your role at Zilliant and how you're actually helping businesses unlock growth through their pricing innovation?
Thank you, Teasha. That was a great intro. I think you said pretty much everything I needed to say. So first of all, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. As you said, a great decision starts with having a good conversation and learning from those conversations. So I'm here for it. As you mentioned, I'm the CEO of Zilliant. I've been the CEO for getting close to 3 years now, coming after Zilliant was acquired by a private equity firm. And Zilliant has been in pricing for a long time. And I think the opportunity that we see at Zilliant, and as you said it, the anxiety, I think it's a really important word. Pricing anxiety is one of the things that we've discovered. A lot of times people think pricing is a mathematical exercise, and there is math in pricing. And for all of our pricing scientists on the Zilliant team, appreciate the math that they do. But it also is a very emotional conversation, because whether you're buying a car or buying a house or in a business transaction, there's always an emotional element of that transaction. I mean, everybody has experienced buying a house or buying a car and leaving and then having that regret, remorse, or kind of what did they get to the price that they should have got? Did they overpay? Did they whatever it is? It's emotional, and it creates anxiety of getting things wrong. And it is our goal, our mission at Zilliant is to eliminate that anxiety, to make pricing a source of power and not a source of anxiety. Whether you're the person who sets the price, whether you're the person who is just representing the price in the context of a sales transaction, it doesn't matter. The anxiety is there. If you're a salesperson, you're afraid of losing the deal. If you're a marketer, you're afraid of how pricing impacts your brand and the value of your brand. There's a lot of people. And because pricing touches almost every function of a company, that anxiety isn't just one person's anxiety or it's across the board. So our goal is to make pricing a source of power. And in order to do that, we have to kind of bring both the emotional and the science together and help our customers feel confident that they can take it from a source of anxiety and a source of power.
So emotion plus science equals confidence. That's good. That's good. That's good stuff. So as a CEO, I completely understand how pricing creates anxiety, because you can't predict the future, right? So you just don't know how people will respond. Is this the right one, wrong one? You can only trial and error it. So that's really good stuff. So when you can take science and when you can take proven methods and put them in place, I think that it's a really important part of a business. So you lead these efforts to really transform pricing into a strategic growth lever. We at C Model, we love to talk a lot about strategy. So what do you believe is the most critical element for organizations to really succeed when they're trying to leverage a pricing strategy to drive business growth, especially today because the markets are so competitive?
You keep using the word strategy. The first thing is what is a strategy? Growth is oftentimes associated with the strategy, but it's not always a growth. Strategy might be more margin focused. The strategy might be more protecting your market as necessarily versus growing your market. There's a lot. And that's the first thing, is everybody has a different strategy, and the strategy is never the same forever. Right? So, our customers' strategies change on a year-to-year basis based on where they're currently at, how they're doing, competitive situation, macroeconomic, social economic situations, forces them to change their strategy. In today's world, tariffs are driving people to reevaluate their strategy in terms of, are they to focus on growth, margin maintenance of the margin? There's a lot there. So number one, need to have a strategy, and pricing has to be part of that conversation. It's part of the strategy. And then the question is how do you actually execute that strategy? And the Zillion's precision pricing platform not only helps you identify and think through the strategy, but it helps you by giving you the tools to execute that strategy and then measure the strategy. We want to give you the tools to do it to make that part easier, not easy, easier. And then there's always then there's the non-scientific part of it, which is the reality of how it comes across. And there's every strategy that isn't executed, we don't know if it's good or not, right? We can't measure a strategy not executed. Just because there is a strategy that's because it's executed, then you learn from it. And so it's a constant evolution. And then, of course, strategy changes. So for us, bringing the strategy and the execution together so that you can actually have a full circle. We think of it as a process. The life cycle of pricing is important.
So the life cycle of pricing. I also believe that almost everything, every process has a life cycle to it. So I like it that you guys have highly focused on the life cycle of your pricing. So I want to really talk a little bit about how you perceive things. So you've got experience. You were experienced at Salesforce. You
Yes.
led product direction and go to market for Salesforce CPQ plus their billing. This was early on some of the first integrated configure price quote and billing systems, right, that Salesforce had. So I'm pretty sure that you got a lot of unique insights from doing that. How did that role shape your approach to really thinking about pricing and customer success together?
It's a great question. Thank you for asking. The one thing that we did not have at Salesforce in the Revenue Cloud team was the pricing part of it. I saw customers who leverage the Salesforce platform as a very powerful platform. It's like there's a gap in that. And it's one of those interesting things where a lot of people either didn't realize it, forgot about it, or just assumed that pricing was included in whether it be in the ERP or in the CRM. And it's kind of like this forgotten area. So that's kind of what identified the opportunity of pricing. And pricing is almost like the glue between everything. If you think about pricing, um, it kind of comes from the back office. It touches the front office. It touches the quoting process, CPQ process. You mentioned billing as well, so back to the back office. So it is really the in between of the front and the back office. And for me, that connection was critical. And I think that was one of the things I learned at Salesforce was customers were failing. And I saw so many companies who had these beautiful architecture slides. And these architecture slides, they all looked almost exactly the same. They had a digital commerce, digital transformation front end on top, and then they had their back office transformation on the bottom of the slide. And what was kind of interesting was in between they had this paperclip which represented spreadsheets in between. That was where pricing was, right? And it wasn't just for small companies, this is for large billion-dollar companies. It is like I still see those slides. It must be a templatized slides that people use, and it's almost this forgotten area. So I saw that, and I think pricing is just one of those areas where you learn about it in business schools, the 4 Ps. You learn about it, importance of it, but it just gets forgotten and or assumed to be covered by somebody or somewhere else. And I think that's part of again goes back to the anxiety of it, which is when someone realizes it's not there, then it's like who's accountable for it? It's a hot potato because we hear about pricing mistakes in the market. Especially, we hear about a lot more on the consumer side. We hear about these fast food chains who have tried to take advantage of surge pricing. We hear about groceries or brands who have overpriced and then have had impact. We hear about the impacts, and it could be very catastrophic. You don't hear about it usually when it goes well. And so as a business leader, you oftentimes don't want to be the one accountable for it possibly going wrong. So that goes back to the anxiety hot potato. So, back to what I learned. I mean, it's the hard things are the things that I really enjoy tackling. Somebody I used to work with a lot, I used to talk about like our job isn't to make things easy, it's to make things that are hard easier. If we can make it easier, maybe less intimidating, we can take away some of that anxiety and we can help you by at least giving you more confidence. So I look at everything we do and say, how can we take something and it's not reasonable to say we're going to make it easy because this is hard. Well, we're going to make it easier. And every year, can we make it a little bit easier and a little bit easier? And it's not just technology that helps you. It's how we approach you and from a customer success perspective. It's the tools that we give you in terms of best practices and bringing in prescriptive processes and suggestions. Like, here's what good strategies have looked like. Here's how you can test those strategies. Technology aside, those are customer success parts of it, as you mentioned. So our job is to make it easier and to take away some of that anxiety.
Okay, so I hope you won't mind, but I am going to take make it easier, and I'm going to use that, okay? Because when we talk about decision making, it's complex. It's going to be hard, right? And so our job as a software provider too is just let's make it easier for you, as opposed to uh, make it all go away. That's good stuff.
But
So, Pascal, you're someone who you've overseen customer success. We kind of just talked about customer success a little bit here, and you've had these programs that involve things like renewals, automation, predictive analytics, KPIs. Which are the KPIs that you find to be the most telling in assessing the impact of pricing strategies, and really focus on the ones that show the impact of pricing strategies on customer retention or revenue growth?
well, it's interesting. This is a topic that we talk about a lot, and it's like, well, how do you measure success for ourselves so that we can translate that into the likelihood of a customer being to staying as a customer? So we want to keep customers for life. I hear a lot of times, oh, look, this customer is very happy, and the temptation is to say, great, that's what we want, but we can't. Nobody in the business world makes a buying decision because they're happy. They're happy for a reason. Why are they happy? What are they accomplishing as a result of using Zilliant and being a customer? Are they seeing an improvement in margin? Are they seeing an improvement in revenue growth? And how do we measure that? And sometimes it's hard. But from our customer success perspective, to know if we're being successful, to know that our customers are going to renew and or grow with us, we need to know that we are creating enterprise value for them. And you know what? Enterprise value is usually going to be more revenue or more margin. I mean, that's typically the two. There's other variables, but those are the ones that matter the most. Sometimes it's hard for us to say, well, we can account for and take credit for X percent of improvement is in margin. We have benchmarking. We do that with customers, but it's hard to say that we get all the credit. So we usually, have to create some type of say, well, let's assume we take some of the credit. But what's really unique about what we do, as opposed to a lot of enterprise software companies, is that we do touch revenue and margin directly. And so unlike other categories, it is easier for us to say there is a clear correlation. If our pricing suggests to our customer sales team, here's what you should be pricing it at, and here's your target, here's your floor, and here's your the range. And if they listen to that suggestion, we can measure that. How many times did they ignore our recommendation versus how many times did they follow our recommendation? How many times were they above the floor, below the floor? And we can measure when they are adopting the recommendations. Are they seeing improved win rates or reduced win rates? Are they seeing bigger deals, small deals? So it's one of the beautiful parts of this space. It's a lot easier for us to measure the value. And to me, that's the definition. If we can't point to how we have created value in the context of revenue growth, margin improvement, or cost efficiencies, then we're only able to say that they're going to renew because they're happy. It's not a really good business case for a CFO.
I'd actually argue that most tools that are going into a business today actually need to measure money in, money out,
Yeah,
and the number of customers. Like, I would say those should be your success measures no matter
that's right.
what, because that's where value is in the company. So that totally makes sense. So you've been a board member, right? Given your board membership experience, College is Real Inc. is a place where you are board. And so that particular place, you were supporting educational opportunities. How do you integrate values driven leadership into your approach to business growth and even pricing strategy?
Well, I think that in my roles, whenever I participate in any, for example, charitable foundation or nonprofit, whether it be as a participant or as a board member, like the College is Real, I always go back to what it has in my life created a positive impact, and how can I recreate that for others that maybe not have the opportunities I had. And to me, real world experience, like mentorship, internships, those are the things that have really impacted. If I go back to my experience, it's like those are the opportunities, those that have really had a positive impact, as opposed to just education in the classroom, which of course is important. And so I always find ways to do that, and whether it be in Zilliant and spending time to do mentor others in Zilliant, like other employees who maybe I could relate to from my past. I used to be in that role. When I was a success person, individual contributor, I had great mentors at Salesforce who I learned a lot from. So how can I kind of pass that forward at Zilliant and on? So I spent a lot of my time looking for those opportunities. Again, in Zilliant or not, I've been very encouraging of like interns at Zilliant, whether it be some high school interns even who can learn and use that opportunity, because I do believe the real world experience is important, and then that translates all the way into our pricing. Like, because when companies talk about, well, how do I know if this is going to work? I say you don't until you try it, and try internship to me is like a trying it. I don't. I get people. I want to be in business. Why? What's your basis for that? Have you ever experienced it? Let's give you some opportunities to experience different parts of running a company. And so I think it's the same thing. And so again, going back to the Zilliant precision pricing platform, where we help to find a strategy, we help execute that, analyze it, and then iterate. And a lot of it is try and experiment and do it in a way that's somewhat containable so that you can manage the fallout and the negative consequences. We want to give companies opportunity to try different things. There is no secret sauce. Everything doesn't work the same way every single time. And so in my board roles and my philanthropy opportunities, to me, it's about giving others opportunities to try and to fail safely.
So I've got your second algorithm here, which is opportunities plus experience also equal confidence. So remember, the first one was emotion plus science. Now
That's
you've
right.
got opportunities plus experience. That's really great. This is a quick message for our audience. I want you to think about your own organization's pricing and customer strategies. What pricing decisions have created the most meaningful impact on your business outcomes? Please do share your experiences with us on LinkedIn and other social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. Let's move and talk a little bit about your leadership. So, we've got this background. You're leading global customer success and product teams at Salesforce. You've now got what you're doing at Zilliant. What strategies do you employ to really build up innovation and collaboration on your teams, especially when you're thinking about working across products or working across teams?
Having the opportunity to work at Salesforce for as long as I did, and with the leadership and learning from the leaders there has been really helpful. And so a lot of what I would say now is really recreating those opportunities for others in zillion other places. And I think this is really it's consistent with what I just said. The try and fail. So we've tried so many things in my past thinking, hey, this is going to work, and it didn't work. And then we said, okay, but that didn't mean it wouldn't work ever. It just means that for whatever reason at that time it didn't work. And so it wasn't necessarily a bad idea. It could be that maybe we didn't execute it well, or it could just have been a good idea at the wrong time. And conversely, there are some things that did work, but in a year or 2 years later, situations change, they won't work. And so I think the most important thing when it comes to innovation, whether it be R&D with the relation software innovation, or whether it be how we operate our business or processes, is it goes back to try things, learn, adjust. Just because they don't work doesn't mean they're wrong. It could just be they need to be tweaked. And just because they do work today doesn't mean they're going to work in a year. So be open to throwing it away. And I think that, Mark Benioff was such a great leader that one of the things that I've said about him is that I've never seen him be afraid to be wrong. I remember many situations where he would say, this is what we need to do. And he said it with such confidence that everybody else felt like, this is it. This is the answer. And then a year later, he said, okay, I was wrong. And not many people would want to admit that, or they'd want to pass the buck, if you will. But he was not willing to continue in what he realized was wrong and waste more time. He'd be much more willing to just do a big, massive pivot. And that's hard to do in a big company. It's a lot harder to do in a big company than it is in a small company, but it's hard to do, period. And I think that goes back to, from my leadership, I'm okay if people come and say, I tried this, it was wrong, and I'm adjusting. I'm okay. What I'm not okay with is people not trying different things, or being so stubborn that because they tried something, they don't want to admit they were wrong, and they just keep investing bad money or bad time. And so from a leadership perspective, it's finding those opportunities and in some ways celebrating them. Because if you don't celebrate them, then other people don't realize that it's okay. And so I think celebrating those failures, and you've heard so many stories of inventors who have talk about how many times they've had to fail at building something. That is not just in innovation technology, it's how you run your business too.
No, that's great. I mean, otherwise people become stagnant. So the minute that you stop trying is the minute that you stop growing, you stop finding new things, and you really will break your team that
Yeah.
way too. If your team doesn't have a place to go in order to ideate and try things out. So, here's my favorite part. I'm going to explore your decision-making style through a persona assessment. I'm going to
Okay.
ask you four different questions that represent different decision making approaches. And after each one, you're going to tell me how much the way that I've asked that question matches your decision making approach. And you'll get a scale for each one of 0 to 100%. However, across all of them, you only get 100%. Does that make
Okay.
sense? And you only get one at a time. So you'll have to listen to my little spiel, then you'll give me your percentage. Tell me a little bit about why it's that percentage, and then we'll move on to the next one to see
Sounds
how
good.
it goes. Ready? Okay.
Yes.
So the first one is called the feeler. It's a values driven leader. So this persona prioritizes alignment with core values and mission, often weighing the human impact and cultural fit of decisions alongside business metrics. When considering a new pricing initiative or customer success program, I ask myself, does this align with our commitment to driving business growth while supporting lasting customer relationships and reflecting the values driven leadership that I've embraced through my board and consulting experiences? Even if a more aggressive pricing tactic might generate short term revenue, I need to feel confident that we're building sustainable growth and positive impact. How much of you resonates with that?
It's between 0 and 100.
That's right, but you only get 100 for all four. Yes.
I would say 51%, which means I have 49% left. And I don't know what the next 3 are, so I might regret that, but that's what I'm gonna say.
Is there any like why there? Do you want to tell us a little bit about why you're
I think that the reference to values that you made in that is important part of it. It's not feeling for the sake of feeling, it's tied to values. And I think as long as we as a company are aligned on our overall objective, there's a lot of numbers in between, and the numbers in between and the metrics are going to be important, and they're going to be ups and downs and stuff. But if we stay consistent with the values that we align on and the overall strategy as a company, then I think the feeling and alignment to those values has to be has to be a majority, which is why I had 51%. It has to be the majority because again, there's going to be things in and out of our control that are going to change the numbers in the day to day. And I assume that the next three are going to include some elements around data. So I'm just making assumptions there. And it's easy to get distracted by day-to-day decisions based on data, and it's not unimportant, but the values has to be what holds me true, has to be what ties our employees together, our stakeholders together, and a lot of times even our customers who are here because that we have alignment in terms of overall values. So that's the why.
That's good stuff. Here we go. You ready? This one is called the planner. It's a strategic visionary. So this persona focuses on long-term implications and future-proofing decisions, always thinking several moves ahead and considering multiple scenarios. When making strategic decisions about pricing platforms or customer success strategies, I ask myself, what are the long term implications of this choice for how organizations will grow and retain customers over the next 5 to 10 years? I need to map out how market dynamics, technology evolution, and customer expectations will change, ensuring that our solutions position clients for multiple possible futures while maintaining scalability and adaptability.
Interesting. A mentor of mine told me as when I started as a CEO, a CEO is about playing chess, and chess is about being multiple moves ahead, which sounds a lot like what you're describing in the planner or planning category. So if I had 51% for the feeler, and knowing that there's two more after this, I'm going to have to go 25%, 24%, so we can get even numbers here. 24%. So that leaves me 25% more to between the next two, hopefully.
It's doing good. This is good. Here we go. This next one is called the counter. It's the challenger of assumptions. So this persona naturally questions conventional wisdom and always looks for contrarian opportunities, often finding success by zigging when others zag. So when evaluating pricing strategies or customer success programs, I ask myself, what assumptions are we making about customer behavior or market trends that might be fundamentally wrong? What is everyone else in the pricing and SaaS space doing that we should question? I tend to dig into why certain approaches work and whether there's a more innovative method that leverages our unique position to solve problems differently.
Wow. I can't go back and change mine. So I'm going to say 20%. It's partly because, not partly, it's mostly because what we're trying to do with Zilliant is different. We're not trying to iterate on what has existed in the past. We are trying to change the market, which also means that we have to kind of assume that the market will change with us. And so in many ways, there's a little bit of like counterintuitiveness that we're doing, which is here's what the market's been doing. It's been doing this for a certain amount of time, for decades. But we're doing something different because we believe that something different will actually change the market. And that's what I'm hearing from your description of the third category.
I really actually appreciate the way that you describe that, because something different will change the market is really along the lines of how I think about my own business. And so just to kind of hear you articulate that is really helpful for me, because you try to explain, I don't want the status quo. The idea here is to make a difference and bring the market along with us. Okay, so that actually only leaves you 5% more, but here we go into the very last one. And I'm already kind of feeling like your 5% will make sense here, but let's see. So this one is called the data driver. It's the evidence-based decision maker. So this persona relies heavily on metrics, analytics, and concrete evidence to validate decisions, preferring proof over intuition. Before making important decisions about pricing strategy, product direction, or customer success investments, I ask myself, what does our performance data actually tell us about solution effectiveness, customer retention metrics, and long-term revenue impact? I want to see concrete analytics on everything from pricing elasticity and renewal rates to customer satisfaction that can validate our strategic instincts about where to focus our efforts for maximum business value.
Well, you're right on that one. And so I think my CFO and my board oftentimes will look at numbers. I think of it as like looking in the rearview mirror to tell the future. Because of what we just talked about, that counter-intuitive element, like we're doing something different. The past numbers don't necessarily reflect the future. And so for those reasons, and we're trying to change the market, past numbers, don't ignore them, understand them. The CFO cares more about them than I do, and that's his job, which is great. That's also allows me to not spend as much time on it, but they're not necessarily a reflection of the future. And so getting too caught up in the past numbers isn't necessarily going to keep us in the right directions. Uh, so I would say I'm okay with 5%.
So your totals are this. You are 51% feeler, 24% planner, 20% counter, and 5% data driver. That's good stuff. The idea is that there's no perfect mix. This is really helps you to think about how you even might communicate with your team about how you want to receive ideas, believe
Yeah.
it or not. Yeah. So thank you for doing that. I love it. It's always so
Thank
much
you.
fun. Yeah. So we're going to wrap up the conversation, but I've got a final question. So
Sure.
you've helped all these companies to really think about how they unlock growth, but maintain a real commitment to operational excellence. And really the one that I love the most is values driven leadership. If you could give one piece of advice to leaders who want to leverage pricing as a growth driver, what would it be?
Think cross-functionally. I mean, it's growth. When you say leaders, you cannot get the benefit of the power of pricing in a function by itself. It is cross-functional. It requires collaboration. It requires coordination, which is always hard. And so going back to it, so from a value perspective, aligning on a company level value that allows you to bring it and say, this is why as a company, whether you're the chief commercial officer, chief marketing officer, chief financial officer, chief whatever officer, whoever is leading the charge, it isn't yours, it is the company's, and it has to be cross-functional. Again, which is part of what makes it hard, also what makes it powerful if done well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Thank you for transparently sharing your expertise, Pascal. It's been a wonderful time having you on the podcast. Would you let everyone know where they can learn more about you and more about Zilliant?
Absolutely. Zilliant.com, Zilliant.com. And I'm always available and accessible through LinkedIn as well. You can just look up my name. The good thing about my name is there are not a lot of names on LinkedIn, Pascal Yammine, but you can find a few of them maybe, but feel free to reach out to me, obviously, through our website or our LinkedIn, as well as our CEO at Zilliant.com, and it will come to me as well. I'm always happy to have conversations. Teasha, thank you so much for having me. I love this conversation. It's been a real joy.
Thank you so much. And to the listeners, thank you for tuning in. Remember, the best decisions come from great conversations. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe it, rate it, share it with your network, and let's keep the conversation going on social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. And until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.